The shocking truth behind Prophet Malachi's prophecies revealed. Few knew what truly happened that night in ancient Judah. The air was thick with tension, electric and charged. A lone figure stood among the shadows, cloaked in mystery. This was Malachi, the last of the great prophets, his voice echoing through the streets like the haunting notes of a forgotten song. His words dripped with urgency, warning of judgment and hope. But what did they really mean? Long forgotten were the whispers of a coming day when darkness would fall on the land. Many dismissed his prophecies, but could they afford to ignore the signs? For centuries, the Israelites had wandered in search of answers, lost in a world that seemed to care little for their cries. And now, as Malachi stood firm, people gathered, eyes wide and hearts pounding. They felt Eda's shift in the world, a stirring of something alive, a foreshadowing of change. Malachi's prophecy about the coming messenger sent shivers down spines. Who was this figure meant to prepare the way? The very thought of an imminent reckoning loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. And yet, hope flickered in the shadows. Amid the chaos, a light might break through. But how could despair and joy coexist? The very fabric of their faith was being torn apart. During the silence, breaths were held, whispers cracked open the night. A child stumbled back, fear etched on his face. "He's lying!" someone shouted, and the crowd tensed. How could they reconcile the prophecies with the harshness of their reality? Malachi stood unmoved, firm in his truth, yet within him, doubt fought for space. The weight of his revelations could crush a lesser soul, and just as suddenly, a flash of brilliance erupted in the heavens. Was it a miracle? A sign? Gasps filled the air. The crowd clutched each other in a mix of fear and wonder. Malachi's eyes mirrored the chaos. Even he was unsure of what lay ahead. Shadows danced and flickered, revealing glimpses of hope intertwined with their deepest fears. What could this mean for the people of Judah? Would they embrace the change, or would they crumble under its weight? The murmurs grew louder, rivaling the beating hearts around them. Then, stepping back into the darkness, Malachi's voice pierced through, heavy with unshakable resolve. "Prepare! For the day of the Lord is coming." The words hung in the air, pregnant with meaning, echoing with the possibilities of what could be and what could be lost. A whisper weaved through the crowd, relentless, a plea for understanding. But could they handle the weight of such truth, or would it shatter them into fragments too small to see? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night deepened, and the atmosphere thickened with an unshakable tension that clung to the people like a heavy mist. Malachi's echoing proclamation had set forth waves of uncertainty rippling through the hearts of the gathered multitude. The flickering light from torches cast long shadows, and in those shadows, fear took many forms: doubt, anger, hope, and despair. Murmurs filled the air, weaving together a tapestry of questions that might never find answers. "Who is this messenger?" a woman whispered, clutching her child as if to shield him from the inescapable reality of their plight. Another voice chimed in, "What if the day of the Lord has already come, and we have missed it?" Each question weighed heavily, their collective voice seeking clarity in the dim light of understanding. As the crowd simmered with uncertainty, one man, bold yet trembling, stepped forward. His eyes were bright with a flicker of defiance. "Malachi, if this day is indeed upon us, what shall we do? How are we to prepare for such a reckoning?" His voice trembled, and the tension broke for a moment into a stillness that seemed to demand an answer. Malachi locked his gaze onto the young man, and a flicker of recognition passed between them, perhaps an acknowledgement that they were both seekers amid the chaos. To prepare is to reflect. We must turn our hearts back to the ways of our ancestors. We must seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God. His words came forth, each one steeped in the weight of generations past. The crowd fell silent once more, the simplicity of his charge both comforting and terrifying. What did it mean to reflect, to turn back? Was Judah not already a people marked by pride and division? Doubt snaked into the minds of many, raising questions that tore at their resolve. Yet, amid the deepening shadows, a flicker of something else emerged: determination. A figure rose from the perimeter of the crowd, an elder whose face bore the lines of countless seasons. "We are lost. How can we reclaim what we have not valued?" he cried out. His voice, rough yet deep, carried a gravitas that demanded attention. "The scars of our division run deep. Can we find unity among our own?" Malachi took a deep breath, swallowing the enormity of his task, knowing that not all would grasp the essence of his call. "Unity blossoms where the hearts of the weary seek understanding," he replied, allowing the silence to nurture a moment of introspection. A young girl stepped forward then, her innocence haunting against the weight of the discussion. "But why must we suffer? Why can't the world change without pain?" Her question danced in the air, a poignant reminder of the innocence that hung in the balance between darkness and light. Malachi searched for the right words, realizing that every answer might be laced with uncertainty. "The light shines brightly in the darkest of places, dear child," he finally spoke, his voice both soft and firm. "The struggle is often what brings clarity. It is through the valleys we come to recognize the heights." His gaze swept through the crowd, meeting eyes clouded with confusion and fear. "It is in this moment, together, we can choose to walk in faith, not fear." As the crowd absorbed his words, the skies above began to rumble, a distant thunder echoing the hearts that beat in unison beneath it. Was nature responding to their plight, or was it merely a sign of times to come? Every ear strained to catch the whispers of the universe as Malachi felt an unshakable sense of inevitability settling like a somber blanket around their shoulders. What further truths lingered in the unspoken spaces between his prophecies? As souls mingled with hope, confusion, and an insatiable thirst for understanding, one question loomed larger than all others: could they unite under the weight of uncertainty, and would that unity be enough to withstand the storm? As the thunder rolled ominously above, casting an eerie hush over the crowd, Malachi felt the weight of their collective anticipation pressing upon him. Each face looked to him not just for an answer but for a glimmer of hope, a promise that the darkness could be pierced. His heart surged with the realization of the moment they were all sharing a fragile juncture where fear could take flight or find solace in belief. "Listen, people of Judah," Malachi began, his voice steady despite the stirring winds that picked at his robes. "What I speak is more than a prophecy, it's a deep call to your spirits. In the days of old, our people wandered the wilderness, lost yet found in the guidance of the divine presence. This is not merely a warning, it is an invitation to remember who we are. We are a part of a greater story, woven into the fabric of his plan." A murmur threaded through the crowd as some nodded, and others let skepticism knit their brows together. But in that moment, Malachi sought not to quell dissent but to elevate the discourse. "Each of you carries within your hearts a piece of this land's promise. We are a tree, rooted in ancient truths but branching toward new horizons. Can we not see the strength in our diversity?" A woman at the front spoke hesitantly, "But our divisions seem insurmountable. How can a tree flourish amidst the weight of our past grievances?" Her eyes were lit with a flicker of hope but shrouded in doubt, embodying the inner turmoil of many. Malachi allowed himself a moment of reflection, recalling the prophets before him, their struggles echoing in his mind. "The scars we carry are real, yet they do not define us. A tree does not grow without the elements it faces: storms, droughts, and even fire. It finds a way to adapt, to survive, ultimately to thrive. Can we be like that tree? Can we, despite our wounds, collective or personal, choose to grow in understanding and compassion?" As his words settled among them, the reverberations of uncertainty were palpable. Was it truly possible for them to rise above their hurts? To seek healing as a community, when every heart had its unique burden? Malachi took a step closer to the gathered souls, feeling the urgency in the air. The storm clouds, darkening further overhead, seemed to remind them of the urgency. The time was now. Heartache and division can either lead us to despair or drive us toward redemption, he proclaimed, his voice rising. We have in our ancestry lessons of deep sorrow transformed into resilience. Here, among us, lives the spirit of our forefathers, those who wandered, who cried out for a promise, who found solace in the stillness amid chaos. At that, a man clothed in tattered garments raised his voice. But what if we have forgotten those lessons? What if our hearts are too hardened to hear? His question hung heavy, a testament to the struggle that so many faced a yearning to believe but chained by the weight of history. Ah, dear brother, Malachi responded, his heart aching for the man's pain. Even in forgetting, the seed remains within the soil. It waits for the right conditions to awaken. Our role now is to cultivate those very conditions. The invitation stands for alto, soften our hearts, and prepare the ground. An elderly woman with silver hair stepped forward, her voice trembling yet filled with conviction. Is this unity worth the price of vulnerability? What if we expose our wounds, and they only deepen? Malachi understood the trepidation swirling in her heart. To be vulnerable is to risk, yes. But it is also to open ourselves to mending. The act of coming together, of sharing our stories, holds transformative power. Love, compassion, and forgiveness can be unbreakable threads in a tapestry of unity. Are we brave enough to weave ourselves into that fabric? As they pondered this, a flash of lightning illuminated the faces surrounding him, reflecting the flickers of doubt and determination in their searching eyes. It was in that brief flash of light, amid the uncertainty and the gathering storm, that a realization began to settle within Malachi, that the journey toward reconciliation was not merely a singular path but a mosaic of many stories. And yet, the unbroken silence that followed spoke volumes of their struggles and fears. In this moment, one profound question emerged amid the disquiet. Could they allow themselves to be vulnerable enough to confront their histories and thus begin to reshape their future? As the storm continued to churn angrily above, Malachi felt the heaviness settle not just in the air but deep in the hearts of his gathered companions. The rumblings of the heavens echoed the turmoil within each crack of thunder, a reminder of the power contained both in nature and in their own gathered spirits. But amidst the disquiet, something within Malachi began to unfold, a whisper urging him forward. Listen closely, people of Judah, he spoke again, his voice gaining strength. There is a reason our hearts flicker in the shadow of doubt. It is because the reclaiming of our stories is not merely a task, it is a journey steeped in grace. Each scar we bear, each tale of abandonment or betrayal, holds within it a seed of revelation. When we share these stories, they nurture the soil from which new life can emerge. A young boy, standing by the feet of his mother, cried softly, his innocent eyes reflecting the stormy sky. Without thinking, Malachi knelt before him. What troubles you, young one? He asked, an empathy rising within him that transcended mere words. The boy looked up, a tear trailing down his cheek. I'm scared. The thunder is loud and I can't see why do we have to be afraid. His question, simple yet profound, struck a chord within the hearts of many gathered there. Malachi used this moment as a bridge. Fear is like thunder, it can seem overwhelming, and yet it reminds us that something greater is flowing through us. Sometimes, we must feel the thunder to understand the quiet whispers of peace that follow. Just as the storm nourishes the ground, so too can our trials be a strengthening force. But there is always danger in storms, someone shouted from the crowd. What if we let our guard down, only to be hurt again? Malachi rose, his heart pounding with the urge to reassure. True, storms can be fierce. Yet even as lightning strikes, it also ignites new flames of possibilities. Each moment of vulnerability calls not merely for courage but also for trust in the divine, who weaves our paths even when the skies are dark. We are not just confronting our past but stepping into a promise of transformation. His words resounded, but the air remained thick with apprehension. The elderly woman interjected once more, trusting feels like a leap into the unknown. What if we take that leap and only find ourselves back in the same despair? But every leap, Malachi continued, a twinkle of urgency in his eyes, is a potential dance. Each misstep could lead to new rhythms in the music of our lives. So often, we fear the fall rather than embracing the hope that it might lift us higher than before. The storm began to shift, clouds swirling, yet a gentle breeze began to weave through the murmuring crowd, inviting sighs of wonder and reflection. Malachi looked at their weary faces, the weight of history etched in their brows, and felt the stirrings of something sacred within him. Think back on our ancestors, the trials they faced, the journeys they took. They stumbled, they ached, yet through it all, they clung to a vision beyond their circumstances. Could we not be heirs to that same legacy of hope? Just then, a soft voice from the back emerged. But do we even know what that vision is anymore? It was a poignant question that sent ripples of doubt through those present. Malachi paused, the implications weighing heavily on his heart. In truth, it may be that part of our journey is to rediscover that vision together. In our vulnerability and shared narratives lies not only our healing but the revelation of a purpose that transcends the grief of our past. Around him, silence fell. Each soul began to wrestle with the unknowns that loomed ahead, shadows clashing with flickers of illumination. As Malachi gazed at the faces illuminated by the dim light of the lightning above, uncertainty lingered. Would they step into this together? Could they, united by their stories, press toward a future brightened by a shared vision of hope? The air crackled with anticipation. What revelations waited just beyond the storm? What truths might emerge from the depths of their hearts? And were they ready to walk that uncertain path into the future, leaning into the unknown? As the storm raged on, drenching the earth and unleashing its fury, the crowd remained in a deep stillness, each heart wrapped in the tension of the moment. Malachi felt the energy shift among them, a mixture of fear and longing, as though the storm itself was somehow waiting for the right moment to unveil its deeper purpose. Malachi inhaled the heavy air, saturated with the scent of rain and earth. What if, he began, the storm itself is not just a trial we must endure but a messenger of profound insight? What if through the chaos, we might hear the very heartbeat of our Creator? Lightning cracked sharply, illuminating the tension on the faces before him, and just as quickly, darkness reclaimed the night. He could sense their unease as they shifted their feet, but the whispers in his spirit urged him on. Let us embrace this storm together, for within its tumult lies an invitation to confront what has remained unspoken for too long. He motioned toward the gathering dark clouds above, a vivid metaphor spilling from his lips. The unseen burdens we carry often mirror these clouds, heavy with unresolved grief, swelling but held back from release. When we fear to speak our truth, we too create storms within our own hearts. I invite each of you to consider, what is it that you fear to unveil? What sorrows have been kept hidden in the recesses of your soul? A woman stepped forward, her frail form shaking not just from the chill in the air but from the weight of years unbidden. I carry the shame of my past, she said, her voice breaking. I hurt those I loved, and the remorse torments me still. I fear that any attempt to reconcile will only bring forth more pain. Malachi's heart ached, sensing the magnitude of her confession. In our confessions we lay our burdens down into the storm, where they can be transformed. Just as rain nourishes the earth, our shared sorrows can lead to healing and new beginnings. Would you dare to trust that in the storm of vulnerability, there is grace waiting to embrace your heart again? From the edges of the gathering, more souls, emboldened by the exchange, stepped forward with a confession or an unvoiced sorrow that resonated like a thread unraveling amidst chaos. One by one, stories poured forth, fractured relationships, failures, betrayals, fears of the future, all woven into the fabric of their collective pain. Why must we endure this pain? A young woman cried out, the weight of her question echoing as thunder rumbled overhead. This storm rages. Will it ever pass? Malachi's heart was torn by her earnest plea. Perhaps the answer lies in understanding that storms are not merely destructive forces. They herald new life and opportunities for growth. The pain we endure can cultivate resilience if we permit it to teach us. Just as the ground softens for the roots to grow, your struggles are preparing fertile soil for new beauty to emerge. As the tempest above raged on, a downpour began, drenching the earth until it gleamed in the sporadic flashes of light. People huddled closer, drawn together in their shared experience. It seemed the rain evoked a primal essence. Something sacred awoke in their connection, and Malachi sensed the spirit of unity stirring among them. Perhaps we aren't just the stories of our past, he continued, his voice steady against the din. Perhaps we are also the stories of how we overcome them. Each drop that falls on our heads is a reminder of the possibility that every fear expressed is a step towards liberation. But doubt lingered like the storm clouds that had gathered, heavy and unyielding. A wise elder spoke once more, her voice trembling with age yet unwavering. What if, in this storm, we encounter the very truth of our existence, the parts we are most afraid to face? What if the truth reveals that we are more broken than we thought? Malachi paused, the question a jagged stone cutting through the sentiment gathered thus far. Yet, even in our brokenness, we are not alone. For if we can turn our eyes to the possibilities that await beyond our fear, we may find strength in each other's embrace. Our brokenness can bind us, transforming individual pain into a shared pilgrimage toward healing. The storm raged on, its intensity mirroring the vexed emotions swirling within the gathering. Would they embrace the uncomfortable truths within the tempest? Could even this storm, raging and raw, bear witness to their transformation? As the questions hung in the heavy air, Malachi's heart braced for the possibilities, sensing they stood at the edge of revelation. The heart of truth lay just beyond their grasp, waiting for them to reach out through the chaos. What might they become if they dared to confront their storms together? And what light could emerge from such fervent storms of truth? The rain fell in sheets, each droplet a messenger of the unspoken truths clamoring to be released. As Malachi observed the faces before him, shadows danced in the flickering light, reflecting a mix of trepidation and resolve. The storm, fierce and alive, continued its thundering symphony, echoing their inner turmoil. Let us not shy away from the depths of our pain, Malachi urged, allowing the pulsating energy of the tempest to invigorate his spirit. In this crucible, we might yet discover a truth that transcends our fears. Can we not see that our shards of brokenness hold the potential for something beautiful? A silence fell upon the crowd, as if the rain itself paused to listen. Malachi knelt before them, his hands reaching out, palms upturned to the steady downpour. Sometimes, we must brave the unrelenting waters to find the treasures hidden beneath. What if our greatest fears are not waiting to consume us but to teach us what it means to be truly whole? A young man, his face a mixture of defiance and despair, stepped forward, water dripping from his hair. But what if the truth we encounter is one that changes everything? What if we discover that our lives have been built on lies we told ourselves to survive the storm? He implored, his voice strained with emotion. Malachi met his gaze, aware of the raw vulnerability in his words. It may indeed change everything, yet transformation is the very essence of our journey. Can we not recognize that facing our truths, however daunting, is an invitation to evolve? The storm compels us to shed the weight we've carried too long. With those words, he pondered the countless storms of biblical history, the floods that reshaped the earth, the fires that paved the way for new beginnings. In each tale lay the promise of renewal, nestled within the heart of the chaos. The flood brought forth a new covenant. The fire of the desert illuminated paths of hope. Each storm bore witness to divine workings, and so too our struggles may lead us closer to the heart of our Creator. Once again, the young woman who had cried out earlier stepped forward, her expression softened by curiosity, though still trembling with vulnerability. But how do we know that these storms will not drown us in despair? How do we navigate the depths without losing ourselves to fear? Malachi contemplated the inquiry, feeling the very weight of it, as all present awaited his response with bated breath. In moments of trial, we must lean into our faith and to one another. Just as lightning breaks through darkness, so can trust illuminate the path ahead, he replied, his voice steady, infused with a warmth that beckoned connection. In community, we find strength, a tapestry woven from our shared stories, creating a shelter against the fiercest winds. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly, minds turning toward possibility rather than despair. Yet doubt remained like a dense fog, persistently clouding the connecting threads they endeavored to grasp. As the storm surged and the winds swirled, an elderly man with sunken cheeks and wise eyes raised his hand, interrupting the growing tide of hope. But what if our storms do not lead us to brighter days? What if we face truths so painful that the healing becomes an ache rather than a balm? Quiet enveloped the crowd, becoming a palpable entity in itself. Malachi felt the intensity of the man's words, the poignant honesty of the fear that lay therein. Yes, he acknowledged, the path to healing is not always linear. Sometimes, we must endure the very depths of sorrow before we can ascend. The truth might not always feel like a bomb. At times, it will pierce like a sword. Yet even here, there is a promise that awaits, a promise that through our shared pain, we can rise together in resilience. As the tumultuous sounds of the storm raged on, each heart beat with the weight of collective uncertainty. Malachi realized that his role was not merely to guide them but also to remain present amidst their fear, a witness to their struggle and their journey toward truth. What if the essence of our truth lies not just in what we discover, but also in the bonds we forge amidst the storm? Can we trust that together, confronted by our fears, we can sculpt a renewed existence? He questioned, yearning for deeper revelations to surface. The storm rumbled in response, echoing the myriad questions that lingered in their hearts. What would it take for them to embrace their truths with courage? And would the light that was promised ever truly break through the clouds of their uncertainty? As the storm's fury continued to rage, Malachi's gaze swept over the crowd, each face illuminated by fleeting flashes of lightning. Among them, he discerned the tremors of fear and the flicker of hope intermingling like threads woven in a tapestry of vulnerability. The rain, though relentless, seemed to serve as an invitation, a cleansing ritual, perhaps, where the layers of their anguish could be washed away and something new could be birthed. Suddenly, a rumble of thunder seemed to command the silence, compelling Malachi to speak again, his voice rising above the tempest. Dear souls, the path reveals itself not through the clarity of our foresight but through the sincerity of our hearts. We must dare to embrace both the light and the shadow. What we fear may be the very catalyst for our true transformation. From the back of the gathering, a voice, a gentle one tinged with uncertainty, emerged. But Prophet Malachi, how are we to trust this journey? What if the revelations lead us down a path of despair rather than redemption? His eyes focused on the speaker, capturing the essence of her anxiety. Trust, my sister, is not a destination but a journey itself. It is intricate and often fraught with difficulty. But each step taken in courage, each movement toward honesty, draws us nearer to understanding, even when the outcome remains unseen. Brisk winds carried her question to the forefront of Malachi's thoughts, interlacing it with the echoes of those who had gone before him. As he reflected on those ancient stories, the wanderings of the Israelites, the cry of David amidst the valley, the silence of Job during his greatest trial, she noticed a pattern: the unlikely intertwining of fear and purpose, despair and hope, fracture and healing. Consider, he continued, the heart of our history. Time and again, trials have led to new beginnings. With each struggle, we have been offered glimpses of grace that spill forth, even in the darkest moments. We are not alone in our fear. We are being molded. Perhaps the storm itself has much to teach us about resilience. As the torrential downpour reached a crescendo, a ripple of movement in the crowd drew Malachi's attention. A young woman, her voice shaking yet resolute, stepped forward. But what if these truths we pursue expose deeper wounds? How do we carry on if our firmer beliefs crumble through revelation? Malachi felt a stirring within him, trying to grasp the weight of her query. The act of unveiling truth is often tumultuous. It will press on wounds we have hidden and challenge thoughts we have held dear. But do these not also serve as thresholds, gateways to profound healing? Might we emerge not only altered but whole, discovering in the space left behind a truer identity? Another murmur swept through the crowd, voices blending with the rhythm of the rain, resonating with questions that danced like shadows among them. Malachi thought of how isolation long had been their companion in suffering, while the dawning of shared truth could break down barriers they had not even realized existed. As thunder rumbled once more, it carried with it an unusual quality, a sense of the divine whispering beyond the storm. Malachi felt the weight of revelation loom close. What if, my friends, he posited, his heart racing with anticipation, the essence of our truth lies not only in what we confront but also in the relationships we forge during our ascent? Can we emerge from this trial not as solitary souls but as a community bound by our shared struggles and triumphs? The acknowledgement of this communal journey seemed to spark hope among them. But even as eyes met with tentative glances of encouragement, the specter of doubt lingered. Malachi sensed that they teetered on the edge of something profound, yet still shrouded in uncertainty. In a moment that felt both sacred and weighty, he pondered the ultimate implications of their quest for truth. Here we stand, the winds of change whipping about us, the storm revealing our human frailty. What might we discover in our willingness to face these tempests together? Is it possible that the true revelation of our journey will not just rest in the truths we uncover but also in the community forged through facing fear hand in hand? The storm continued its symphony, each clap of thunder urging them deeper into contemplation. Would they embrace the call to solidarity in their vulnerabilities, or would the winds of uncertainty scatter their resolve? What revelations awaited them in the heart of their communal struggle, and how might this shared experience eventually transform them all? As the storm's fury began to wane, the moment felt pregnant with a stillness that wrapped around the crowd like a tender embrace. The heavy rain transitioned to a soft drizzle, each droplet resonating with the weight of unuttered fears and lingering hopes. Malachi observed the faces before him, their expressions reflecting a spectrum of contemplation, a silent communion sparked by the questions that had been raised. "Let us breathe deeply together," he urged, his voice gentle yet firm. "For within the breath lies our shared essence, uniting us amidst the chaos that surrounds us. Can we find strength not only in the storm's fury but also in the gentle caress of its aftermath?" As the patter of water on the earth softened, the people began to relax, shoulders unburdening from the tension. A faint rainbow arched across the sky, teasing with a promise of light in the wake of darkness. Malachi took this as an omen, a sign that their collective spirit was aligning, even as shadows of doubt danced at the fringes. "Reflect for a moment," Malachi proposed, gently guiding them into contemplation. "Each experience of suffering we share, each moment of fear we have faced, is a thread woven into the tapestry of who we are. Can we not hold our revelations like lanterns, illuminating the path before us? When our beliefs are challenged, we may feel unsteady, yet it is in this very place that growth is possible." A hush enveloped the crowd as they absorbed his words. Gradually, a stoic figure near the front stood, his deep-set eyes searching the depths of the assembly. "Prophet, you speak of growth, yet is it not possible that we may find ourselves more lost than ever before? What if we fail to emerge even as we endeavor to understand?" His voice, though tinged with despair, carried the weight of genuine inquiry. Malachi respected the man's vulnerability. "Ah, my brother," he replied softly, "the journey does often lead us into the wilderness of our own hearts. But what we consider loss may also be the space required for rebirth. In uncharted territory, we may begin to carve out our true selves, just as the eagle must be unfettered from its nest to soar. As Malachi's words hung in the air, the young woman from before stepped forward again, her resolve strengthened by their shared experience. "If loss leads to growth, then mustn't we embrace it fully? What of the heartache and the fears that trail behind revelation? Is there a balance to be found amidst the contradictions?" Her question sparked a ripple of nods and murmurs in agreement, echoing the complexity of their shared struggles. Malachi sensed a growing urgency to address the infinite facets of their plight. "Indeed, our path is littered with contradictions. Life itself is a mosaic of joy and grief, love and pain. To embrace one without the other leaves us incomplete." Struck by the depth of their gathering, he felt compelled to share a personal experience. "In my own journey, I faced a darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. It was among my greatest fears the fear of losing everything that I discovered a kernel of faith. Faced with the bleakness, I encountered a profound stillness that echoed whispers of resilience. The crowd leaned in closer, each individual drawn to the gravity of their shared humanity. It is within the depths of our challenge," Malachi continued, "that we encounter the divine spark and ember that, once nurtured, could illuminate our collective understanding. But who among us will gather around this flame, nurturing one another as we strive to unveil the truths of our existence?" With another rumble of thunder, they all felt the electricity in the air shift, the atmosphere buzzing with a mysterious energy. Malachi discerned a deeper question rising, one that stirred within the hearts of all present. What if the very act of revealing our truths necessitates the courage to embrace our vulnerabilities as a unified community? In such mutual exposure, might we discover a power that can transcend our individual struggles? As he spoke, the realization dawned, a realization that there lay within them a potential far beyond their present comprehension. They stood at a crossroads of understanding, where the divine might reveal a tapestry woven with vibrant threads of unity, courage, and love. But as they peered into the depths of their shared experience, uncertainty shadowed their resolve. What would it take to stoke the fires of courage needed for such a journey? Could they unite in their quest for truth, even as they feared the very exposure that enlightenment demanded? In their vulnerabilities, what deeper revelations awaited a light yet to be discovered in the heart of darkness? The air hung heavy with anticipation, a palpable tension woven into the fabric of the crowd as they gazed at Malachi, seeking further illumination. His words stirred an energy, a collective heartbeat that resonated with a yearning for understanding. The gentle whisper of the wind seemed to echo their unvoiced inquiries, inviting deeper exploration into the mysteries they faced. As the last remnants of rain trickled from the leaves overhead, Malachi encouraged them to unveil the fears that lingered within their hearts. "Let us not shy away from our uncertainties," he implored. "For in naming our fears, we strip them of their power." With a resolve that mirrored the gathering storm's descent, several voices began to rise, timid at first but growing in clarity and strength. "What if the truth we seek burdens us rather than liberates us?" A voice called out from the back, tinged with trepidation. "What if embracing our vulnerabilities only uncovers more darkness?" Malachi turned to the speaker, his gaze warm and understanding. "Ah, dear sister, fear is an unrelenting shadow. Yet shadows exist only where there is light. When we expose our darkest corners to each other, we invite light into the space between, illuminating what once flickered in obscurity. Perhaps it is not darkness we must fear but the complacency of unexamined existence." A murmuring wave rippled through the crowd. The truth of his words resonated. Yet still, another challenge arose. A man, weathered by experience, stepped into the light. "But what if we uncover truths we cannot bear?" he asked, his voice resolute. "What if the revelations fracture our bonds instead of weaving them tighter? Such is the risk of profound connection," Malachi responded, a sense of urgency lacing his tone. "But consider, what if these truths, though painful, are the catalysts for transformation? The earth itself must convulse under pressure to birth new life. In our brokenness lies the potential for wholeness. Each revelation may carve a path toward understanding even the greatest divides among us. As the crowd leaned into his words, a spark of hope ignited, each heart stirred by the idea that their confessions could weave connections instead of severing them. Yet beneath the flicker of belief, a lingering doubt caught in the silence that followed. What if we expose ourselves and are met with rejection? What if our truths are not met with love but disdain? Came a soft voice from the side. Malachi took a deep breath, allowing the weight of that fear to settle among them. "Then we must seek to cultivate an environment where vulnerability is revered, rather than scorned. The fabric of our community needs to be stitched with understanding and compassion. What may begin as discomfort can blossom into acceptance, provided we tend to one another's wounds." An ancient echo of longing seemed to circle amongst them, invoking a shared memory of unity in adversity. Individuals began to share their experiences, their stories intertwining like vines, each revelation wrapping around one another, creating a dense network of shared existence. Yet, as the words flowed, Malachi noticed a flicker of concern in the eyes of the young woman who had initially questioned him. "Prophet, you speak of rebuilding and connection, yet I fear we may be stepping into an abyss of unknown consequences. How do we prevent the unraveling of what already exists?" Malachi's heart swelled at her perceptiveness, the depth of her inquiry revealing layers of complexity. "The journey toward truth is often not about neatly tying off a story but rather embracing the unraveling as part of our sacred process," he replied solemnly. "Can we learn to find beauty in disarray? Each question we ask, every fear we brave, weaves new patterns into our collective tapestry, binding us more closely than before." As the sky above danced between light and shadow, casting a kaleidoscope of colors over the assembly, silence reigned once more. They stood at the precipice, yearning to dive into the depths of discovery. The notion serenaded them, a melody of courage, a thirst for truth, and an affirmation of their shared plight. But as they gathered their resolve, Malachi felt an impending swell of questions thick in the air. Could they really embrace the potential fracture only to find healing on the other side? With each brave unveiling, would their hearts converge or splinter apart? What sacred truths lay dormant within their interwoven lives, waiting to be revealed but perhaps carrying the weight of both liberation and heartache? As the storm finally began to recede, the clouds parted slightly, allowing beams of gentle light to filter through. In the midst of this transformation, the crowd found themselves suspended in a moment of introspection, each pulse of their collective heartbeat resonating with the weight of their stories, the depth of their fears, and the flickering hope that offered a way forward. Malachi observed the changing sky above, an echo of the shift occurring within their hearts. The air grew still as he sensed an impending revelation, a profound understanding about to blossom from their collective struggle. Beloved people of Judah, he raised his voice with renewed fervor, this moment is not the end but rather the beginning of our awakening. Together, we have excavated painful truths, yet in our vulnerability lies a power we cannot ignore. A hush descended upon them, as a sense of solemn anticipation gripped the gathering. They were poised not just as individuals but as a unified collective, on the brink of a sacred promise. What if I told you that this shared journey through darkness could illuminate a path not just to each other but to our Creator? What if within our stories lies the very thread that stitches us back together? At that, a woman near the front grasped her husband's hand firmly. But how do we know what awaits us on this path? What if the light we seek feels too distant, too fragile? Her voice trembled yet was laced with a yearning for reassurance, a voice echoing the collective apprehensions still haunting many in the crowd. Malachi stepped forward, the gentleness of his gaze enveloping her, his voice steady yet soft. Ah, dear sister, remember this: the dawn breaks slowly, often hiding behind shrouded clouds. Within our shared stories, we sow seeds that nurture the faith that holds us up, even when the shadows loom large. When we lift each other's burdens together, even the darkest night may yield a glorious sunrise. The words reverberated through the audience, deeply resonating within their spirits. They began to see the possibility perhaps their fears could sculpt a connection that would transcend the cracks stretching before them. What if the truth we dare to embrace leads us not to isolation but to a kinship forged in understanding? This bond could be the bridge to communal healing, a myriad of souls intertwined in the journey. As Malachi spoke, a quiet yet potent energy began to fill the space between them, emanating from their shared fears and hopes. Inspired by his words, a young man stepped forward, his expression one of fierce determination. Then let us weave this truth together. If vulnerability breeds strength, we must not shy away from sharing our burdens. His declaration ignited embers of courage within the crowd, and others began to nod in agreement. Yes. Another voice rang out, followed by more, their tones rising in unison. We will claim our truth. We will confront our wounds. We will not allow fear to hold us captive any longer. As they stood together, a palpable shift occurred. Each declaration became a thread of connection, pulling them closer, forging a tapestry of resilience and compassion. Malachi felt the vibrant surge of hope pulse through them, igniting something secret, a transformation beyond mere words. Together, my beloved people, he proclaimed, we shall usher in a rekindled spirit among us. This is our moment not merely to survive our past but to thrive amid our truth. In our embrace of vulnerability, we will find a strength that breathes life into our wounds. The crowd drew closer, forming a circle as hands clutched each other tightly. Lightning had transformed into an ephemeral light that now radiated warmth, shining down upon the assembly. In this sacred moment, they shared in the depths of their offerings, confessions woven into promises, tears mingling with laughter, every heartbeat resonating with the knowledge that they were not alone. What then shall we do? An elder inquired, his voice trembling with the weight of expectation. Malachi's heart quickened, for the moment he had awaited was upon them, the chance to lead them into their awakening. Now is the call to action, dear friends. Let us heed the words of our ancestors: to seek justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly. Let our truths be our guiding light instead of shadows. We will rise together into the fullness of who we are meant to be. As the words settled in the crowd, a sense of electric anticipation sparked among them. They would not simply rest on the legacies of their forefathers. They would breathe new life, shaping their community into a sanctuary of Hopian embodiment of unity forged in the flames of struggle. One voice rose above the rest, shining like a beacon of determination. Let us create a space for Allah, a place where love and understanding triumph over division. Together, we can heal this land. A ripple of agreement swept through the crowd, intertwining into a sacred promise, a communal resolution to leap into the future with faith, trust, and an unwavering commitment to one another. In that moment, they grasped the core of their existence, the realization that no storm would undermine their spirits if they faced it together. As Malachi lifted his arms toward the heavens, he gazed upon each soul before him, brightened by the dawning light of change. We are more than mere shepherds navigating the storms. We are the architects of a brighter tomorrow. Our journey is redefined not by the struggles that once bound us but by our shared dreams ignited through our truths. We shall rise as one. With that declaration trembling in the air, thunder rolled softly in the distance, a celebration of their new beginning. For they stood not just as witnesses to the moment but as participants in a magnificent unfolding, a journey colored by wisdom and adorned with faith. As the sun broke through the last patches of gray, casting light across the valley, the echoes of Malachi's voice resonated in their hearts. A promise swaying gently on the wind, the recognition that they were tasked to heal not just themselves but to transform the fate of their very homeland. In that breath of connection, they would step forward into the light, a community renewed, ready to embrace the world with a roaring faith that would echo for generations to come. And thus, as the final chapter of this ancient tale unfolded, one truth burned bright. The potential for transformation resides not in any single heart but in the collective heartbeat of a community united by love, struggling through storms together, ready to rise anew.